Language is some type of expression, an ontological entity that we can study, some sort of representation of reality. One way to think about language is a medium that exists within the space-time, which is a representation of theory, a representation of someone's ideas. The problem is that the system as it exists in the mind is its own fleshed out animal, and in order to get into the space-time common moment, you have to thread it through the eye of a needle. This is why to thread a camel through the eye of a needle is such an accurate description for something like language, because it has to take a fully fledged organism as it exists in mind, and then to feed it into the common space, you have to expose it bit by bit until it comes out on the other side and is pieced back together by the audience, back into a fully fledged organism. Another way to think about language is to think about the content of the language and to think about how it adds to the effectiveness, the vitality, the expression, the appeal by using dialectics. The first dialectic is the theory-phenomenal dialectic, which is to switch between describing your theory and describing the anecdotal evidence of the very phenomenological experience of that space-time moment. The first movement backwards from the phenomenological or particulate end of the spectrum is to move into pattern recognition or generalization or genre, etc. When we compare the inanimate object with the living organisms, we can see they are negations of each other. The inanimate objects have their expression on the surface, while mind-bearing organisms are much deeper, their expressions needing to be uncovered over time and over the course of a relationship. The organism can be referred to as the named thing. Living organisms can also be referred to using a species term, which is similar to how we refer to tables and other inanimate species. The classifications that we impose onto our world is the transcendental addition to our reality. We are giving the things in our reality another existence, an existence in our hierarchy of comprehension and preference. The feeling is the expression of the mixing of all of these hierarchical systems of comprehension and preference. Because we are an individual thing, a named thing, we need to funnel or focus all the things around us to a single point. The comprehension and the preferences must be referred to one thing, and this is what feeling does. Feeling provides us with the expression of the result of the sorting out of all of these different things into hierarchies that make sense to us and which fulfill our preferences. As we speak, we use rhetoric to be expressive and to show our reality, to show the reality, our creativity. This is a fundamental part of philosophy, is the question, why does the mind want to flourish, be expressive, show itself? The aesthetic parts of nature represent mind. They are not necessarily the most clever part of the organism. The age-old system of roots and stem are extremely ordered and clever, but the aesthetic part of the organism is living or attempting to live in a different reality. It wants to have presence in the space-time moment. It wants to be in the now. The organism or the conscious has a double desire. On the one hand, it wants to have the space-time presence, and on the other hand, it wants to be behind the scenes, a wider perspective, a wider scope knowledge, a more abstract existence. Humans have the ability to pull ourselves out of the space-time moment. We can look at old photos and experience nostalgia and think about our future goals, stretching our feelings backwards or forwards from the phenomenological moment and into the more spirit-like abstract space. Language imitates this double desire by switching between anecdotal evidence or in-the-moment theater versus the space of theory. The in-the-moment theater is not more cringe or less formidable. It is very formidable. It is real. It cannot be undermined. However, it is not the only reality, and more intellectual people perhaps might tire from having only superficial conversation or stimulation. We get an idea of ourselves, our spirit selves, floating above the real world, able to do what we want. We can reach out and build or facilitate or experience at our will. However, instead, logic has taught us how we are interlocked in these systems of trenches. For example, an investigator movie shows us how our position in space-time implicates us in certain ways. As we live through trenches. We don't simply glide above the surface like free agents. The characteristics that we have, the way that the community sees us, is the trench that we have to walk through. Our reputation is our reality. We can work on ourselves to try and change our situation, but we can't simply hop out of our trench and jump into another. These trenches are our throne position. It is the way we behave and perform despite ourselves. Our most in-the-moment conscious mind can only watch this performance. The most present conscious, the most space-time free conscious, can only watch these throne cycles that our organism is living through. Characteristics like extroversion, openness, neuroticism, agreeableness, and conscientiousness, those are the big 5 character traits, are thrown aspects of ourselves, or largely thrown aspects of ourselves that we must learn to live with. Another dialectic that we can study in language is the moral dialectic. Because dialectics are tightropes, meaning they behave according to negations, they are not ultimate spectrums. Morality can be proposed as an ultimate spectrum, perhaps from evil on the one side to heavenly purity on the other. But more helpful is to consider the reality of our interactions with different people and the moral tightropes that we walk with each different person. We pull back instances of our world into the more abstract space, and from this we get generalizations and genres. This gives our world and the things in our world a second existence within our mind system. From here we can do a double abstraction, because we take the generalization and then put it again into a preference hierarchy. For example, we take all the styles of individuals in our community and we make a generalization, and then we order these generalizations into a preference hierarchy. The expression of all of this is not complexity and confusion, but rather clean and simple feeling. Sure, feeling can be confusing if we consider it and get involved, but at its face value, it is a simple and non-mental expression. To romanticize is to take the throne reality and to feel the expression of feeling with a clean mind, a clean conscious viewing. Therefore, the ultimate romantic is feeling the turbulence of the thrownness, but the self is not in that turbulence. Instead, the self is viewing the turbulence from a position of analysis. The romantic is a whirlpool of turbulence of feeling with a clean and calm mind sitting on top of it.